First of all, we have with us tonight representatives from Greater Latrobe School District to discuss the school safety resource officer. Superintendent, nice to have you here, and Mike Poremka. You want to give us a little?
Sure. I'll give you a little bit of background. Earlier this school year, the opportunity became available from the state. They were putting some school safety money out. They had two types of grants. They had a Safe Schools grant that was $25,000, and they also had a school resource officer grant that was $60,000. I talked it over with Mrs. Swaggart, and she gave permission for me to pursue both. And we did receive word earlier in the year that we received the school resource officer grant. At that point, again, that $60,000 to fund a school resource officer. It's they call it a 3-year grant, but really it's a 2-year grant. In year 1, $60,000. In year 2, $30,000, and then fully funded by the school district in year 3. So at that point, once we received the grant, we were able to pursue our options and in terms of what we would want as a school resource officer. And we have decided after some discussion with the city and with the mayor, deputy mayor, Mr. Graziani, and Chief Boomar, that we would really love to enter an agreement with the city of Latrobe. I said it at our board meeting last week. I said it in conversations. There's nothing more that I would like for our school district than to have the black and orange car parked in front of the black and orange school. I think it would be a great match. It's an opportunity for us to provide another layer of security to our students and to our staff, peace of mind for our families. But in addition to that, I believe the bigger benefit for the school district would be the opportunity to give one more asset in terms of mentoring to our students. This is a position that would cover all 5 of our school buildings. So we're not just talking about LES, which resides within the city borders. We're also talking about Mountain View Elementary, Bagley Elementary, the junior high school, and the senior high school. So I'm very excited about the opportunity. I've enjoyed our discussions thus far, and I would be willing to answer any questions that council may have regarding the position. That's the 30-second version.
Chief Boomar, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just we met like Mr. Poremka said. I think it would be a good match. It would be a specific position. It would be a Latrobe police officer. They would be hired for that specific position. However, they would be trained by the police department. They would be on our roster. And when there wasn't school, they would be working in the summer as a police officer for the Latrobe department.
The requirements that Chief Boomar spoke of in terms of being trained and being certified under the Municipal Police Officers Act are all requirements of the grant.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Poremka or Superintendent Swaggart or the Chief?
Is there any conflict with Unity Township supervisors?
I don't believe that there is under the school code, Article 7, Section 778. There is a subsection in there that through the Municipal Police Officers Jurisdiction Act, I believe allows for this to happen. I have had conversations with the district attorney in Westmoreland County, and he seems to believe that section of the school code would cover us here. Bringing up Unity Township, the state police obviously have coverage area in Unity Township. I will tell you that the state police do not have a school resource officer program at this time, so they can't provide us this service.
And the schools that you are asking for coverage are all schools, including LES here, all the schools in Greater Latrobe School District, am I correct?
That's correct, all 5. And it would be obviously not on a set, the set schedule would be, this person would be assigned to us 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever their daily shift would be, but not on a set rotation. I think in terms of the safety aspect of this position, I would want some unpredictability in terms of where someone would be. In my research, I believe that provides the best deterrent to school violence.
Would you have any school activities Like, are you gonna keep them 9 to 5 all the time, or are you gonna have any of your school activities?
We have the sheriffs come in and provide us help at our school events. So this would strictly be just during a day event. Now, your officers do patrol our football games, but again, that's an activity that's here in town.
Anything else from Mike? Thank you, Mike.
I appreciate the opportunity to come
Very
in
much.
and speak with everyone. I really do.
Exciting opportunity for us as well as for the school district. So what that would mean then is at our March meeting, we would have to approve to advertise for a new police officer and sign an agreement.
Yeah, we're looking at the agreements that we have already in place, and we may need to amend those or have a new one, an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the school district and the city to allow for the position and, specific to this officer, and then be able to advertise. With the idea that July, we were able to hire the person, they would need to be trained mid-August, get in school service training, so they would have specific Latrobe police training and then school training, and then start the school year at the end of August, beginning September. So it seems like a long time because it's February, but all of us know when it comes to advertising and hiring and interviewing, it will just, we need every moment we can. So we really like to get this going in March and see if we can work towards that goal.
Getting it done that early too, as Alex said, also allows for this person to get experience in the city, doing the job that they'll be doing when they're not being a school resource officer, which is protecting and serving the citizens here in the city of Latrobe.
What else you got? What's next?
I think that's it. If you guys are welcome to stay if you'd like. We're just going to get into our regular stuff related to the agenda for March 10th. Council, I prepared for you a memo with proposed actions related to the regularly scheduled meeting Monday, March 10th at 6:30 p.m. We mentioned the agreement with the school safety resource officer. I would like to add, we're also exploring opportunities to acquire a vehicle for this person, and looking for funding opportunities on our own as a city to do that, so that we won't have the budget impact that could occur if we had to get a new vehicle. There's on the third item, we talked about the second item. The third item relates to a discussion we need to have with the Personnel Committee. As you know, our parking enforcement officer is retiring in March, and we have internally advertised that job before the union, and I think that we're at the point where we can put it out on the street. But as we're doing that, there's a number of other conversations that are taking place, and I think that I'd like you as mayor to help me with the Personnel Committee to get together and kind of decide on some actions, which may have then agenda presence on March 10th, because it may include reworking some job descriptions for the union contract, and we may have to ratify those with council's permission in March. The next is looking to work with the Redevelopment Authority of Westmoreland County, and as well school district would be a part of that. The Redevelopment Authority of Westmoreland County, under the county commissioner's authorization, is providing the technical assistance for the Westmoreland County Land Bank. The Land Bank is a group, if you will, that is authorized under new state statutes to address issues of blight and decline, particularly targeting properties that are in arrears related to taxes. These are properties that are, you might consider problem properties because they're not paying taxes. They're the ones that are up for sheriff sale and so forth. And so targeting those particular properties with a long-term plan of getting them back on the tax rolls with a new purpose, be it a home that gets rehabbed, a home gets demolished and something gets built on that, a home that gets demolished and the lot gets divided between adjoining landowners, something to put it back into a positive direction. Now, as we've talked about this, in the budget narrative, we talked about they would like the communities who are in on it to begin with have a $5,000 contribution. From a budget standpoint, we finished the fiscal year with a $100,000 balance in the capital fund reserve account, and I would propose that we would use $5,000 out of that for this effort. I anticipate the county demolition money will mainly find their way through this. When you look at what's going on in the paper related to dairy, at Porcelain Park and Jeanette, in these large-scale demolition A lot of county demolition dollars have gone to that. I should note, though, the county used county money to demolish buildings for the community college. Community college did not pay for that site to be demolished. That was the county CDBG and demolition money. But nonetheless, going forward, the communities that are involved in the land bank probably will be the priority communities for those kinds of programs as well. So it's really important, I think, we get in on the ground floor of this. During the presentation last week that April Copus made, the Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority of Westmoreland County, she noted that Mount Pleasant and Mount Pleasant Area School District, North Huntington, and Norwin, and a couple other places are already looking at it. Whether we end up being one of the first one in or one of the first one in, there will probably be about 10 communities a year from now that will be taking part of the Westmoreland County Land Bank, and I'd hate to be on the outside looking in when that opportunity is before us now. So I shared with you a number of files on those, and there's a lot of information. Mr. Kelly was a participant in the meeting at the school district, and the way it would work is we do an agreement, then the school district would look to do an agreement because it's dealing with allowing for tax money not to come to them for a period, so there needs to be an agreement by the district to support that, and we're looking at getting these things moved along hopefully in March. Yeah.
The premise of this is the building is that they're not getting tax money for it anyways in most cases because they're in arrears.
Yeah, that's why
So
they're
the
trying
idea
to
is-
share cell. They've been
Right.
a long way away from being.
So the idea is to get rid of them and have the opportunity to have something else going in place to be a taxable.
Develop them, and put them back in the tax.
Right.
What we
Right,
found in the
exactly.
past was these problem properties will get picked up by somebody who watched an infomercial at midnight and learned how to get rich quick. And they really don't have the capital to get it back in play. And then they actually become worse for the wear. You know, somebody else has purchased it and now isn't able to turn it into anything. And I can name a couple properties where that's exactly what happened. They were at that point. This allows the county's land bank to get in front of any of those. So if somebody else is, trying to acquire them, they're already kind of on a notorious list, and they're, believe it or not, there's a number of these around the county who've just acquired these, and they keep accumulating, but they're not properly disposing of them to make them get it back into the tax rolls. And of course, Madeline probably is familiar with a few of them. And we want to be more proactive. And the law enables the land bank, if authorized, to get in first position and protect the community from further deterioration.
And then you have ownership of the property?
The land bank would, with the goal of disposing them in, again, a strategic way. They don't want to be holding them forever, and they don't want to be, developing themselves per se, like a landowner might for the redevelopment authority, for the housing authority, for example. They want to get those back into reuse.
I think the key is they look at our plan of development, and they try to buy up a piece of ground if they think someone else may not follow or adhere to the plan that we're trying to develop for our community. So it gives better direction for the use of the property.
Question?
Would they exempt tax exempt people from getting
That's
these
what
properties?
if we directed them to that, we'd rather it go this way or that way, we could work with them on that, but there's no specific stipulation that that be a requirement of it, that be.
But the idea is to get them to someone who is not tax exempt.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea of the,
I mean, half of Latrobe's almost tax exempt.
right.
So
About 25%.
25%.
25%. Wow.
A quarter. It's still a lot.
That's more than it should be.
Yeah.
But the idea is to work with this development group, the redevelopment authority, or whoever is going to be part of the Westmoreland County, and to have input so that these properties have a very, very good chance of being developed by tax-paying entities rather than
Right.
Absolutely.
If we were to acquire
Landlords,
ownership,
whatever.
we'd have to put it out for bid if we acquired ownership. And that means someone may buy it at the lowest or the highest price, not someone we might necessarily want to develop the property, but when they own it, they're not subject to bidding
Right.
requirements.
And
That's the benefit on the back end, on the disposition.
Yeah, if we were to do it ourselves, you're right, we'd have to put it out for bid and we have no say-so
Right.
over
It's a
who
good
would-
opportunity
who
for,
would purchase it and develop it. But with the land bank, they have a little bit of more governance over
Yeah.
yeah.
who they're going to sell it to.
To me, it seems like a good deal for a relatively reasonable amount of money.
We're a
to get-
right-sized
to get-
community
To get in
for-
on the ground floor.
We're a right-sized community for the program. Quite frankly, you may have read in the paper, 200 properties in Menneson, are in arrears and are struggling properties. The land bank can't even imagine to take something like that on from the get-go. But we have a lot smaller problem. We're really looking at 8 or 9 properties right now that are really at that eligibility level that we could consider, using their efforts to get that, which is a lot more manageable. I mean, you can imagine in other communities how overwhelming 200 properties can be.
So that'll be on the agenda as well.
We'd like to get agreement.
Okay.
Next item would be related to Comcast and the cable franchise agreement. As you know, a 10-year agreement with Comcast is expiring this month. We're in a period since we've been negotiating. Federal law allows us to continue on because we're in good faith negotiations. But we're looking at doing a multi-year agreement and again trying to cover all our bases. I don't know if the new acquisition will have any impact in the future, but it won't have any acquisition now, I guess, with Time Warner. That really isn't an issue for this one. But stay tuned for that. The agreement's pretty much done from our perspective, and I'll be working with Jim to make sure we have the right kind of resolutions in place in March. And again, we're trying to also see if we can get better opportunities for particularly the fire stations, with internet coverage, and for the city building itself.
And was there a financial overlook through a contract somewhere?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that went on this. One, we did an audit of their system, and we got a check from Comcast in our favor because they had underpaid us in the franchise agreement.
That's already occurred.
2, we got a grant from Comcast to help underwrite the fees for this contractor. We hired Cohen Law firm, or Law Associates out of Pittsburgh, who specializes in cable franchise negotiations. We've done that in the past, and then again this time around we did.
We got a grant from Comcast to help with it.
That's kind of nice the way it works out. Barb Buck will give you the specifics on those. We've kind of tracked it to see where the bills are and where the money is, so that we're coming out really in our favor. It's the way it's working for us. The next item is related to, I would like to put out a request for proposals. And just proposals, not bids. Proposals will be, firms will give us their qualifications and make a pitch to be an ESCO. An ESCO is an energy savings company. This is a concept that we've talked about since at least May of 2013. And I've had some recent meetings and some emails on that I've tried to share with council to give you some more understanding. But at this point, I'm asking council in March to approve advertising RFP. When the RFP goes out in April or May, council will get a chance to approve a vendor. At no cost, the vendor will do a phase 1 feasibility analysis, whether or not they think they can make this work. The way it works is simple. The ESCO, authorized by law, is able to obligate future savings that the city may be able to realize and fund that and basically use that to mortgage improvements. Be that everything from roofs to this building to new HVAC systems for this building and so forth. Capital improvements could be funded through the savings. Now the ESCO acts as a broker or general contractor, and the game for them is it's got to make sense, or they don't want to have a part of it. Financially it's got to make sense for them. The reason they do it and we don't do it is because the way local governments aren't as easily able to obligate future councils or future budgets, like they could through this law. As a third party, they're able to do that. So what council will do is authorize the RFP, and then at a future time authorize a vendor at no cost. We will do another step to say, yeah, this dance could work, or no, this won't work. So before any money would get spent, you would know, in each step, you have another opportunity to chime in and say, this would work for us. But at the end of the day, if it works well, we really won't be obligating any money other than, foregoing savings for a period of time, 10 to 20 years, 15 years, to leverage a financing of a capital improvement. So that's what that's where the money is. If you can save 70%, you can save $20,000, you get that $20,000 annual savings, and you put that away for 20 years to finance this improvement. So that's sort of the way it works. And as you realize, in this building alone, being built in 1978, we have an HVAC system that is limping along. And either we're going to pay one way or the other. And if we can do it this way, this may be the way to go. It may be the other ways. We may find out this isn't the best deal for us. A number of other communities have done this. These companies work with local governments to do these kinds of things, and school districts have done them as well. And county, for example, one of the companies we're talking has done them with the county, and you may have read those when the commissioners signed those agreements in the past.
Anyone have any questions on that? Is that it?
Just one more item. The last item, Jim, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this. Nick had Nick Police from the county, so you got it. So are we going to need then to actually do a new resolution?
Repeal the old one and do a new one.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll say because not DEP.
DCR?
DCED wants a new resolution. Apparently, the monies we're seeking is going to come through a new program called the Keystone Communities Program. And then we would do a second resolution for the extension of the funding under the current program that we're in. The new communities program, if I read this correctly, I have to call Nick and talk to him, is basically to obtain additional facade monies to extend that out. So we have extend the $60,000 grant that we sought, and then also to get new facade monies for about another 2-year period. It's going to require 2 resolutions.
And we'd be repealing the ones we already just adopted a month ago.
Is there any, is that it?
That's it.
Anyone in the audience have something they'd like to say? Yes, Chief?
Julie Beasy and Nick Felice and I have been working on a neighborhood watch program. I wanted at this time to ask Mr. Kelly if there were any stipulations, any kind of ordinances, resolutions, or anything that needed to be addressed for that program to come in effect.
Something's going to have to be done. Chief, I just can't tell you whether it's ordinance or resolution at the moment. I'll have to look at that, but I can let you know.
I need that for the next agenda. If we could do that, Alex?
Are we participating in funding of anything with the Neighborhood Watch program? No funding whatsoever? Does it involve any of our personnel?
No. Other than
Training.
organizational meeting to get started. It's the community's project. The community will run it. They will have their own block captains, block co-captains. The only thing that our personnel would do would possibly be do some programs as far as educational, organizational, but we will have no way, no how in the running of the actual program.
There will be signs, I said.
Yes, there's signs out there now.
We did participate that one time, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So there has to be something in the blue book there on it already.
That's what I'm thinking.
That I need to entertain that for the next council meeting because
You want it for the March council meeting?
yes,
Something, if there needs to be on the agenda, something to be on the agenda related to,
yes, if we can enact a neighborhood watch program,
okay.
that would be a community-based project, not a police-based project. It's the community's project. The only thing that we'll offer is rules, regulations, and outlines of what they can and can't do, and how they should respond to the police and things like that. I did a PowerPoint that I will do at the first meeting that outlines what they can and can't do and what they should look for and things of that nature.
On that same subject, Chief, last week, we were fortunate enough to have Pennsylvania Downtown Center hold their meeting here in town. And I heard during a few hours that I was at that meeting, they are an organization funded by the state government, housed in Harrisburg, that can offer assistance to towns like Latrobe. Just as you said, because it's a community-based
Right.
project, and they can offer assistance with guidelines and where to go for some financial support, otherwise known as grants, to try to help fund this. So I think Alex would have some good contacts there for that, but that was one of the areas that they spoke about were neighborhood watch programs, that they are working with several communities in Pennsylvania to assist them just like this. There's someone from the police force, someone from council, and someone from town, a citizen or two forming this group to have this neighborhood watch program.
I know in the last 30 years, Mike, we've attempted neighborhood watches, and we've went as far as having some organizational meetings, putting signs up, but it never really took off. It never got organized. That it has to be stressed to the community that it is a community project, not a police project.
And that's one of the items that this gentleman spoke about was they get like a bird taken off, flap, flap, flap so far, and then they fall down, and no one ever, another issue comes up, so there's no one there to help foster this bird, get it up into the sky again. So they have people that do that, and at a very minimal to no cost to us to do that, and then there's some financial help once you get it going, because you need to have advertising, you need to have some community get-togethers, you need to have some training, or so everybody on the committees know what's involved, what they can or shouldn't do. And just as you mentioned, that gentleman spoke of the same issues, that they start very well with good intentions, but then they lose traction. So they're there to help us provide traction so that this program can successfully embark within our limits.
Anybody else have any questions on the neighborhood watch? Sir, I think you wanted to say something.
I have an apartment building I'm building in Latrobe.
Okay.
Do you want to hear it now?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I started it in June, and I called the municipal authority about getting sewage in because there was a trailer on there, and the trailer had terracotta pipe. And I asked him, I said, does this go into PVC pipe? And he said, yeah, somewhere, but they didn't know where. So I said, well, can I just dig it up and trace it back? And he said, yeah. I said, go ahead. Well, I did. I started digging it, and it was all this little short terracotta pipe, 4-inch pipe, and it went into the street. Well, I came up to the street, and I called him up, and I said, this terracotta pipe goes under the street. He says, well, you can't dig up the street unless you get permission. So they sent Joe Bush out. And Joe Bush came out, and he looked at it, and he said, well, you're at a dead-end street. You're at the end of the street. He said, there should be no problem, digging it up. Go ahead. So I went ahead and I started digging it, and when I got to where my pipe ended, it was inside of a 6-inch pipe that was a lateral from the neighbor's house. And there wasn't even no fittings on it, nothing. It was just a hole in the pipe, and the terracotta pipe stuck inside. I called him up and I told him, I says, this thing's all hooked up illegal. I said, it's not. I said, I can't hook an apartment into something like that.
Who'd you call, LMA?
I called Latrobe Municipal Authority.
Okay. And sir, can I have your name, please?
Alan, A-L-A-N, Kadlec, K-A-D-L-E-C.
And where is this apartment?
The apartment's over on Knox Avenue,
Joe,
2125 Knox.
Right, Joe?
2125 Knox.
So what did it?
So they sent somebody out there, and the guy looked at it, and he says, oh yeah, he said, you can't hook it into the neighbors, So I says, well, I'll hook it up into the main. I said, but I'll go down and hook it in right. He said, well, I'm going to go get you the fittings. I waited and I waited and I waited. He never showed up. He never came back. I called him up at 2:30 in the afternoon. This was in the morning. I called him up at 2:30 in the afternoon, and he said, oh, they're going to send somebody out in the morning. Well, the next morning, Joe Bush came out with somebody from the municipal authority, and the municipal authority was telling me that I can't hook up anything in the street. I'm not allowed. And Joe says that he never really gave me permission to dig it up. I had to get a permit. So I came up here to get a permit, and Ann Powell wouldn't give me a permit because she says she only gives the permit to the person who finishes the job and backfills and is done. That's when they get the permit. So we scrapped all that. And anyway, they said they're going to send somebody out the next day. Well, the next day, Bowman Plumbing came out. He said, I have all the exclusive rights for all the plumbing in Latrobe. Now, is this a monopoly or what? And I don't know why he would have exclusive rights when I'm a plumber and I could do all my own plumbing. I do all the plumbing in Derry. I hook up sewer lines in Derry and never had a problem. Well, anyway, what happened? Make a long story short, I thought they were just going to hook it up for me. They sent me a bill for $6,000, and now they're not going to give me water until I pay that $6,000. And I had everything done. I could have had it all finished and hooked up and everything that day for about $700 or $800, and I wasn't going to charge the city 1 penny. Now, how could that be saving the city money? I wasn't going to charge 1 penny to the city.
Obviously, we're going to have to look into this a little bit further. Alex, are you aware of any of this?
I'm familiar
Okay.
with it. I knew we had some sort of standstill. I've heard about, the bill. Mr. Cadillac, if you don't mind, tomorrow you and I can speak, and then I will be your point person for the city, and I'll have the conversations necessary with city staff, but also with the LMA. Realize that unfortunately, it sounds like the bill has been created. And
What kind of bill is this?
the 6,000 you referred to, apparently somebody has incurred that.
Right, and
It sounds
I have the bill right here if you look
No, I
at
know,
it.
and it sounds like the LMA has been the one who's incurred it, so we'll have to have conversations with them. Mr. Cadillac, just know though, that doesn't mean the bill goes away. We'll have to have conversations. So if you could, tomorrow, you and I, can start down the process of figuring out the discovery on our side. I've been familiar with it. I've heard it from Ann. I've heard about the issue. It's unfortunate. But I know this isn't your first rodeo. And so I also know that, it's complicated to do development, but you've done it before, and
Well, it's getting more complicated now with all the codes.
well, nonetheless, it's a risk when you're using, your resources getting into the public space, and, whatever permission you think you may have had or didn't have or whatever, the due diligence of engineering may not have been done, and the discovery of what was where, when, may not have been done, and that ends up leading to costs. So if we could talk about it tomorrow, that would be beneficial.
Where do I see you?
Sure, he hasn't dug into the street though, has he? He didn't open the street up, did you?
Yes, I dug the street up. I dug right up into the street where the sewer line goes under.
You're into the street.
Yeah.
Who gave you permission to go to the street?
What's that?
Who gave you permission to open the street up?
Joe Bush.
Well, I think we're going to have to get into this a little bit further.
Yeah.
Much more detail than we're going to be able to do here tonight. So Alex and Mr. Cadillac will get together and try to figure something
And
out.
you have my contact information on the top of that, sir.
Okay, Mr.
Mr.
Kelly has a
Cadillac, is
question for
any
you.
part of that bill a tap-in fee?
No, because I already had the tap in. I had a tap in and I had a water already on the property.
No, but I mean, is it a tap-in fee from the LMA? Is it a fee to you
No,
of X amount of dollars?
All this money is nothing but the bill from Bowman Plumbing. I
Should be a
have,
tap-in fee, it was already tapped in.
Well, it wasn't.
Well,
In a
no,
sense.
it's illegally
You
tapped
thought
in.
it was.
it was illegally tapped
They
in.
didn't figure it was tapped in. The LMA
Yeah,
presumes that
because
was
it was
tapped
hooked up
in.
since the 50s.
Yeah, okay. Anyone on council have any issues they want to bring up?
I have a question for Joe Bush. How are we how did we weather the storm, and how are we set for the rest of winter with our supplies, if you will,
I have some salt on hand right now, not a huge pile, but I have salt on hand, enough for a few events. And I was told today that there'll be a couple more loads coming in, so I don't anticipate any problem with salt for the rest of our season.
Not to be a broken record, but, again, Joe, you and your guys did a great job.
Thank you.
It's been a heck of a winter, and everybody knows that. I think we have a lot to be proud of here, that we didn't have to declare any states of emergency, that we didn't run out of salt, and that we were able to keep things going as well as they did. Also, I wanted to congratulate the chief and his staff on the successful drug roundup that the county task force did here not too long ago, and that our guys are an integral part of, and I believe that this department is the central booking station, so a lot of good things are happening. So thank you for that, Jim. Congratulations to you and your guys.
Thank you.
One other thing for us, I have a list here of my suggestions on the committees that I want to appoint next meeting in 2 weeks. So what I have written down here is that there has to be two council members on every committee, and there can't be more than two because in case when I sit in on them. But we also talked about trying to encourage other people from the community to participate. I had asked Mr. Forrest if he would consider being part of the Public Works Committee, and he agreed, and some of the other members that have applied for the council position. So for Public Works, I had Mr. Baldneri and Ms. Smith, and also Madeline, I had you with Mike on Finance. So Public Works and Finance for Madeline. Jerry, I had you on Public Works. And community development. Oh no, yeah, community development. Public safety, I had Fabian and Julie. Because Julie, you're already working on that with the chief, and Fabian, I think that was your request. Finance, I have Mike and Madeline. A new committee that we never had, which is Community Development Committee, which is the committee that I think we'll be working with Ann Powell and looking at ordinances and coming up with our tenant registration. I had Tricia and Jerry on that. And then Personnel Committee, Mike and Tricia. So I think everybody's on two except you, Faye, but I can put you somewhere when you
What was
here.
my other one?
I had, oh man, I screwed that up. Wait a minute. Julie, I had you on two, I thought. Mike and Madeline.
Were you on this list?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you only have one, you just have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
That's all right. Don't.
Yeah, but I had you somewhere else, Julie.
What was that fifth one?
Did you say personnel third?
Tricia.
Jerry, I had you on two. Madeline, two. Tricia, two. Yeah, Julie, I might have only had you on one.
That's okay, because I'm working with Nick on.
Plus, you're also on the library board.
Yeah, not that.
Yeah, I thought you would. So, again, does everyone know, sorry that I screwed that up, but does everyone, and if you don't want to work on those committees, let me know and I'll move you around.
Who did you say was personnel?
Personnel is Mike and Tricia. Community Development, I had Tricia and Jerry. Finance, I had Mike and Madeline. Public Safety, I had Fabian and Julie. And Public Works, I had Jerry and Madeline. So that's what I want to appoint those at the next meeting. So if anybody wants to move or do something different, let me know. Okay. Any old business? Anyone? Before we have to go into the executive session. But before we do that, anyone else have anything?
The bridge repair coming along, any issues you've seen over there with the Murphy's Bridge?
No issues. They've been working at it pretty strongly. The bridge is actually gone. They were hauling a lot of material out of there today.
Notice any major problems or major setbacks for us have our customers reroute or our trucks reroute, not using that route?
I believe that the detour is working very good.
And I had some older people in the community here asking about recyclable. I talked to Alex about it already. He said they can put it in the dumpster down here. What goes in bins only. You can go in that dumpster back there. So I called those people up and told them.
Some people had concern they would have a tough time getting up to the transfer
snow.
station, even though with the snow, but the detour actually got to Route 30.
Okay, we're going to go into executive session for matters of personnel and legal. And see you on the, whatever day that is. 10th? March 10th.
So-
Yeah.